I call Jonathan Young.
Well, Mr Cunliffe asked a couple of questions. Where are those high-tech manufacturing firms? Where is that investment into that's going to power our economy into the future? Sir, I'm very happy to speak about a company out of Taranaki, sir, that right now is developing a perpetual motion energy generator from wave energy, transferring it, sir, into electricity.
The National Party believes in perpetual motion.
Sir, right now, see, look, they mock. When they ask those questions and they are answered, they're not prepared to listen to actually the innovation and the technical excellence that has been generated in the regions. Sir, this company, with the assistance of Callaghan Innovation, right now is testing their invention off the waters of Hawaii, with great interest coming from international investors all around the world. So, sir, I'm quite surprised that Mr Cunliffe, who spouts off, doesn't know any of this, because he seems to know everything else. Sir, this is a very disappointing budget for the Labour Party. It's a very exciting budget for thousands of New Zealanders. And we saw by the Leader of the Opposition's reply, and even by replies that have come into this House today, what a real lack of substance in the attack on this budget there surely is. You would think, sir, that this #1 attack against this government, as it has been for 6 long years, is that this budget is one, sir, that looks after the big end of town, as I've heard Mr Cunliffe talk about so many times. But this budget is exactly the opposite. Without wanting to be cliche-ish, Mr Little, Mr Robertson were left gasping for air and grasping at straws as they sought to attack this budget. The strongest line of attack that has come has been that we have introduced a new tax in the border processing bill. Sir, which it's not. As we know, it's a user charge that principally protects our primary industries from the incursion of biological threat from offshore travellers. And sir, isn't it interesting that of those offshore travellers that come and go from our country, half of them are not New Zealand citizens. And so, sir, what we are doing, we are transferring the cost of the threat they bring to them. Isn't that smart economics, sir? And all the time we are protecting our primary industries, which are so important. Those farmers, those kiwifruit farmers up in the Bay of Plenty, sir, would applaud this legislation, which will see increased resources for border protection. So this is a responsible piece of legislation that enhances our border security. So it shifts the burden of costs away from the non-travelling public, those who don't often go offshore and overseas, and it shifts it to those who, just by the mere fact of travel, sir, create the potential threat. Mr Speaker, I come from regional New Zealand. I come from Taranaki, a region that is hardworking, that is skilled and successful. So we would say in past years that our region has been very productive for this country. Right now, due to international commodity prices, so we are seeing a decrease in production and profitability coming out of the Taranaki region. But sir, I am very convinced that in due course and in time, that will bounce back. And once again, sir, we will see the Taranaki region producing ahead of every other region in this nation. But when I look back on the past 6 years, sir, that I have been in this House, the Taranaki region has received strong support from this government. Sir, we have a new hospital, we have a new police station, we have roading projects that have been unattended and unsupported, now have investment put into them. So when I think about the investment into our transport system, into our roading system, that creates greater safety and greater economic benefit for our region, I think, why haven't we done this before? Why in those long 8 years of surplus did that party over there who had the purse strings of office, why didn't they invest? Why didn't they spend? Why didn't they spend that money You know, the first time the Waikato Bridge and and that North Gate route was raised in a public forum was in 1968. And all these years of you crowing about fantastic surplus, but you did very little with it. What we have done in the hardest of times, what we have done, sir, in this government during the time when Christchurch has demanded such support, we have continued to invest in the regions to enable the regions, sir, to become more and more productive. And that is because not only do we have stronger financial management happening on this side of the House, sir, but we have a commitment to our regions as we have experienced, sir, in Taranaki. Sir, Mr. Speaker, what this budget has done is commit $790 million over 4 years to the families in this country who struggle the most. And this, sir, is what took the opposition parties by surprise. You would say, sir, that is the response of a party that cares for New Zealanders, and they've never given us that credit. They've never given us that credit. John Key, the Prime Minister of this nation, continues to surprise people. He has reached back into his past as a young boy who was raised in a welfare home just by his mum. And, sir, as he described this budget, a compassionate but conservative budget, conservative that we still believe that the way out of poverty is work, and that we will put incentives in place to lead people and incentivise them to work, but at the same time, sir, we care. We want to help those people, often for no reason or fault of their own, find themselves in places of deprivation. And, sir, just this last weekend, when I met with many of my colleagues, the Honourable Anne Tolley spoke about this at a conference, and the resonance of agreement in that conference was outstanding. Sir, that people felt that this budget was going to make a real difference for New Zealanders. So this is the very heart of our spending in Budget 2015. You know, I often hear comments from civic leaders, sometimes from commerce leaders, saying in Taranaki that we actually want more. That out of all the royalties that this region gives to this country, that we want some extra of that back. And funnily enough, sir, this became a little bit of an issue in the election campaign of 2014. And, sir, I think in a time like this, when at the very best we have wafer-thin margins between surplus and deficit, the bit extra that some of the people in my region want is a significant bit that those experiencing deprivation will not get. And I found myself in September 2014, in election 2014, having to defend an egalitarian New Zealand against the call of the leader of the Labour Party, who wanted Taranaki to get more and other regions to get less. And I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand the flip-flop. And, sir, what people in New Zealand are starting to wake up to is that this government here, that they have always said across the way there that we are looking after the big end of town, are looking after all New Zealanders. That we understand that in this country, that success is something that should be universal. And, sir, that we will go and make the investment into people's lives to enable them to start on the ladder of education and opportunity. I have to ask, sir, I'm going back to some figures a couple of years ago, that when, sir, this previous government across the way had those 8 years of surplus, what did they do with it to the most, I'd say, deprived communities in our country? And, sir, I talk about the families who have somebody in prison. 24,000 kids have a father or mother in prison. Today, sir, all prisoners have education screening with individual learning plans designed for them. The number of prisoners gaining qualifications has increased under this government by 830%. Sir, almost 3,000 prisoners will start literacy. 155% increase, almost 1,500% increase in places on drug and alcohol treatment programs since 2008.
Sir,
all done and all led by an outstanding Minister of Corrections and...